Hey everyone, and welcome back to The X, a new podcast about how experience shapes everything from products to services to entire businesses. I'm your host, Brian McLean, and I'm here with Demetrius Madrigal. Today we're going to talk about movie theaters, what their future looks like with the COVID-19 pandemic, how things have already changed, and some experience-driven ideas that we have on how to adapt to what looks like a new normal. So let's get started. Hey D, happy Friday, buddy.
Hey man, how's it going?
Going well, going well. I've been thinking a lot about movie theaters lately because I am really interested in going back, but I know that we can't, but I do miss them. How about you?
Yeah, I had that experience. There was a heat wave that came through a few weeks ago in California, and I absolutely missed just going to a movie theater, sitting in the air conditioning for a couple hours, and getting lost in a movie. I think that's one of the truest signs that, like, if I'm missing something, if I'm craving something, that experience isn't going away.
Yeah, I don't think it's going away either, but I was doing some research and I was actually thinking about December of 2019
Mhm.
because it was around that time that I went and saw a IMAX movie, and I couldn't believe it. You know, between the audio quality and the seats that were in there, and just the experience that I had of like such a big screen. You know what I mean? And how awesome it was. It was super fun. It was like an evening out to do something exciting. And then we kind of fast forward to right now, and it's like no one's going to the movies. Everyone's talking about whether or not they're even going to survive. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think that what we're seeing is kind of a death of a business model more than kind of a medium, right?
Yeah.
They've had this process where it's only the new movies that are going out. Every single major motion picture gets put out into the movie theaters. It's where the studios hope to make most of their money back, and I don't and they have this exclusivity model because there's this expectation that if they can watch it at home, they will do that instead, as though it's the same experience. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's caused a bit of incorrect assumptions and led to some bad decision making. But I think that there's an opportunity here for theaters to have a new life.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'll tell you, the one thing that did I thought was like a great thing that happened was the fact that everybody TV started becoming cheaper, and everyone started putting them in their homes and building their home entertainment systems. It actually forced the movie theaters to kind of make improvements, right? So tearing out old seats, adding in recliners, offering food delivered right to your seat, upgrading the audio equipment, upgrading the video equipment, like giving you overall a much more kind of night out experience, right? Because ultimately you're also paying more to go see that movie. So I think that was like a good thing because it kind of put pressure on them to make those investments. And I love those investments. I mean, that's what makes it really exciting and fun to go. Um, but now people are obviously concerned about being in closed spaces where they're going to be kind of breathing next to people and that kind of stuff. And I know that some of the theaters started trying things like selling like every third or fourth seat and that kind of stuff. And then they quickly either shut down or basically dealing with the fact that people just don't want to go anymore. I don't think it's going to last forever, though.
Yeah, I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There is something on the other side of that, and I think on the other side of that is an evolution of the business model and an evolution in the experience. One of the things that will happen, I think, as a result of this, is that 60 to 90-day exclusivity window that movie theaters insist upon is just going to have to go away. And this is kind of an old model that's been around for a long time, and it's based on that assumption that if somebody can watch it at home, then they're not going to go to the movie theater. It's kind of like back when TV was first starting off, the film industry was trying to kill TV because they thought, oh, if people can watch video at home, if they can watch TV shows at home, they're not going to go to the movie theaters. And I think they were wrong then, and I think they're wrong now. I think that plenty of people are going to go to movie theaters, but it's going to take a rethinking in both the theater experience and kind of the content that belongs there.
Yeah, I would agree. I was doing a little bit of research about what happened after the Great Depression, and one of the things that happened was that people really didn't want to spend money to go to the movies, but they wanted to be there. So what they did is they like reduced prices, and then what they did is focused more on concessions, right? You know, the foods and drinks and stuff like that that they serve, and that's where they actually started making most of their profits. And as of today, 40 to 50% of all the profits from movie theaters actually come from concessions. So I think what happened is this: if you look at it from kind of this global perspective, you have people that kind of go into the movie theater, right? And the experience itself is driven by like three or four factors. One is the content that they want to go see. Just like you said, if you have really amazing blockbuster content, it's going to drive people there. Second is that they want to have a really comfortable experience. So making the investments in I think it was like 2016 to 2019, there was huge investments in the changes of the seats, right, into
Mhm.
recliners and that kind of stuff, right? So you have this real comfortable fun experience. Then you have this whole other side, which is very psychologically driven, which is the idea that like you can go there and you can get that amazing popcorn and you can get your candies and you almost give yourself permission to eat as much junk as you want, and you can also order the food and have it brought right to your seat. So you feel like you're treated really well. And then in some movie theaters, like the ones in LA, they're actually doing live entertainment before the movie begins, right? So people will play the piano or sing or that kind of stuff. And that also kind of cements in this whole like big experience that you get to have in that evening. But because people are now nervous to go to the movie theater, and I think in the future they'll obviously come back, this is their opportunity to kind of innovate just like they did after the Great Depression and think about what they could do in order to keep this experience moving along, but maybe not exactly in the same way that they had projected basically back in 2019.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that one of the things that you're touching on is that they've already begun to kind of evolve a little bit around the theater experience. The seats are changing, the concessions are changing. Theater closest to my house, it has a full bar now, so you can go there and
Oh,
they have
wow.
especially
Okay.
cocktails. You can get a cocktail that's themed to the movie that you're watching. I think that's opening up new revenue streams for them, and it's kind of providing people with a different experience within the film. And I think that's just the beginning. I think there's going to be a lot more behind that.
Yeah, the other thing that I heard, which you might be pretty excited about, because I know in college we all used to do this, is that a lot of drive-in movies are coming back. So they're like the fairgrounds near where I live. They decided to do a whole summer series where they were projecting all these old movies, like movies from the 80s and 90s that people
Hmm.
really loved. And then you pay, I think it was like $10 a car or something like that. You drive in and then you kind of tune in to the channel and you bring your own food and everything. And it kind of keeps everyone safe because the people that, are in the car with you are the ones that are kind of in your inner circle. And it was a huge hit. Like a ton of people showed up and people were really excited about it. So maybe this is kind of a reemergence of drive-in movies.
Yeah, I think that is something that it has a unique experience that has kind of been neglected, and I think it takes a lot of space, and there's some real estate realities around that. But here in San Jose and Silicon Valley, there's a movie theater or a drive-in movie theater that's been around for a very long time. And the interesting thing is, it shares a parking lot. And I think it shares ownership with a normal movie theater also. So there's like a Cinemark like multiplex in that parking lot, and then on the other side of the parking lot is I think three or four different screens in a drive-in movie theater.
Hmm.
And I think it really speaks to this alternative viewing experience that like you can go and watch the same movie in the normal movie theater. You park your car, you get out, you go inside, and you can watch the movie inside, or you can go to the outdoor movie drive-in movie theater. And the fact that those have coexisted really shows that there's a lot of room for different kinds of viewing experiences even today.
Yeah, and the other thing too is the feedback in the past was, oh, well, I don't really want to go to the drive-in movie theater anymore because the audio quality isn't very good, right? Because remember they used to hang those little boxes in your window, and
Yeah.
it would be really scratchy, and and then they try to do in like the FM tuners and that kind of stuff. But technology has changed, and I think it's a lot easier now to kind of stream audio,
Oh yeah.
especially if you did it over broadband or something like that, to all these, people in their cars. And also it's kind of fun, you can show up in your pajamas. You can bring all of your food and drinks, obviously not alcohol or anything like that, but it could just be a couple hours away so the family can get out of the house, and it's just different from what they're used to, which is going into the movie theaters. But I think in order to get back into the movie theaters, there's a couple things that are going to need to happen, and let me know if you think I'm on the right track here. So number one is I think they're going to need really innovative and game changing HVAC systems. I think they're going to need to convince people psychologically that the air filtration systems that they put in the movie theater are good enough to basically clear out any issues, any virus issues, or anything like that in the future, moments after an entire crowd of people leaves the actual theater. I think that's just kind of the new norm, right? It's like a comfort thing. It's a marketing thing as well. Like, hey, we have top of the line HVAC filtration systems, come to our theater. It's safe. It's comfortable, right? Then I think you're going to see the studios start to only want to put blockbuster movies there for a while, like really big ones that they know are going to be a huge hit. Because I think if you put more art house movies and that kind of stuff, then maybe you're not going to draw as much of a crowd, and it kind of costs a lot of money in order to show these films in the theater. And with that, I think ticket prices might go up again. And right now they're already quite expensive, but maybe it's just more of a boutique experience for a couple of years. Do you think so?
I don't know. I think for one thing, I think you touched on this idea of content, and I think the content question is really interesting, and there's a rethinking opportunity here that I think has a lot of value. And part of it is, yes, there is some content that is optimized for a big screen viewing experience. So you have your action movies with your explosions or and fight scenes and things like that that has a lot of energy, and I think those make a lot of sense in movie theaters. And maybe some of the quieter dramas or even some of the comedies where it's people talking to each other and cracking jokes, maybe that isn't as optimized for a big screen viewing experience, especially if it's a very kind of intimate personal drama. Maybe that's something that's better for the home. But on the other side of things, there's a lot of content out there that I don't think that they're touching on, and it's because they've kind of gotten out of the mindset that this is content that makes sense. And part of that is TV shows, right? You go back to before TV, and you had a bunch of serials out there that would come out and they'd be like an hour long or a half hour long, and people would go and watch them every single week. You would see people do that with old Flash Gordon serials and things like that. And it went away because TV came about, and because TV, the content that was on TV didn't necessarily seem optimized for a big screen theater experience. Like it wasn't like the TV shows we have now. They had smaller budgets. There were like shows like The Honeymooners or I Love Lucy and sitcoms and
Yeah.
things like that. But now you have Game of Thrones, you have Stranger Things, you have Westworld, where it's big spectacle shows with huge budgets and great special effects and fight scenes and all these kinds of things that we normally associate with big budget films. Even sweeping panoramic vistas. These are all things that play really well in a movie theater. And I remember seeing a lot of, especially with Game of Thrones was winding down, tons of people in bars and other public areas watching these TV shows together on normal TVs that are hung up in the bar, and I think that kind of experience can totally be a success in a movie theater. What do
Yeah,
you think about that?
yeah, and I had a glimpse of that actually when a long time ago when you and I were in graduate school and we went to Maui for a conference. I remember walking up to that outside bar. I don't know if you remember, and we were with some friends, and they were showing The Bachelor when that first started, that reality series, and everyone at the bar was like, "Did you see what he said?" or "Did you see what she said?" and like everyone was so connected to it, and they were drinking and they were outside in Hawaii, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like what an interesting experience!" Like none of these people know each other, but everyone is
Yeah.
talking about, it's almost like that kind of water cooler effect. If everyone's talking about this new show called The Bachelor, where someone's trying to, find a mate. And I was like, oh my gosh, like how fun is this? Like everyone is connected, and nobody knew one another, right?
Yeah,
And I like that. Now, you had mentioned something. You mentioned Stranger Things. That is a show that was perfect for the movie theater. I
absolutely.
love that show. And oh my gosh, if I was able to watch each week an episode in the movie theater, that would have been such a cool experience. Right. So, like, I look at it and I go, you're right on. Right. Like, why aren't we taking some of these crazy, awesome miniseries and putting them in the movie theater in order to drive people there? Now, I understand right now people are concerned. Right. And it's going to take some time. I mean, I even heard Mark Cuban the other day, which I believe he owns Landmark Theaters. Or is at least a major partner in Landmark. And he was saying that he believes that for a while, the business is going to be much smaller. Like he said, you're going to see the number of movie theaters in the country probably shrink by almost half. And you're going to see probably some consolidation going on. He said, but then after we move past this, you could see some growth again. So in the short term, you might see things shrink a little bit, which makes a lot of sense, right? If you have, two or three movie theaters in a city, right? So like the city that I live in, we have two movie theaters, right? So they like compete with each other in a weird way because they're only 2 miles apart from one another. But because there's so many people that live in the city, it kind of works itself out. But right now, uh, I know the one that's downtown, for example, is struggling deeply. Like it's people just aren't going, so they're trying to figure out what to do. And as far as what I've read, there's been a lot of debt equity going around. So a lot of these big movie theaters are borrowing money, hoping to buy themselves some time to get out of this. But I think that there's some things that they can do right now in order to continue to increase revenue and keep that psychological connection with the customer.
Well, I think that it's important when everything is going on right now is to not be a prisoner of the moment. It is not our normal operating context for there to be an infectious pandemic sweeping through the country. And at some
Yeah.
point, whether that's next year or next month, that's going to be over with. And we're going to have to look at, all right, well, if things are back to a new form of normal, what are going to be the things that stick around? What is going to be catalyzed by this coronavirus that was happening anyway? And what is the future going to look like? And part of that is a innovation and evolution in what the movie theater experience is in terms of content, in terms of the experience and the structure and the potentially the business model. So part of that we've been talking about. I think that there's also an opportunity for like live events, live music, comedy, those kinds of things, certain days of the week, because you already have an amphitheater for people to come in and to view something. Why can't it be a local band? And then on the other side of it, yeah, there will be some consolidation for sure, and there will be some evolution. And ultimately, somebody's going to figure something out. It's going to combine certain elements of different technological innovations, design elements, content strategies, and somebody's going to establish a new model. And then people are going to copy that model, and then we're going to see what the new movie theater experience will be.
Yeah, I agree with you. It makes me think of that topic we were discussing a couple of years ago about the founder of Napster. Remember, he started up a service which caused a lot of controversy, where what he wanted to do was basically deliver blockbuster movies that are going to come out. Let's say it's coming
Oh
out
yeah.
on a Saturday, right? Remember that? And
Yeah.
then and then you pay like $40 or something like that, and then you can watch that movie on the day that it comes out in the movie theater in your home, but you're paying a premium in order to do it. And he wanted to do that, and it caused this huge fight basically in Hollywood, where
Yeah.
some people were like, yeah, great idea, this is a great evolution of the movie experience. If people want to pay a premium in order to get it, let's do that, right? And then there was this whole other side of old Hollywood that was like, no, 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 we're not doing that, right?
Yeah.
Like if they want to see that movie, they have to go to the movie theater. Do you remember this?
I do, and I've heard since then. I was listening to like a Kevin Smith podcast, and he was talking about how within LA and probably outside of it also, there's a service. It costs thousands of dollars a year, where
Okay.
you get first run movie theaters right in your home, but it's a super premium experience. It costs thousands of dollars. So I think that made it to market in some way or form, and that's still around. it does kind of
Yeah,
bring up a thought for me. So this, the way that they're forcing users into a certain use case for consumption, I think it's slowing down their growth. And the reason why is you're not seeing what natural choices people make as far as what content they're seeing in a movie theater and what content they choose to take home. So we're not entirely sure what their choices would be if they were just making it based on the merits of the experience.
that's true.
It's kind of
Yeah,
like before streaming, and the movie theaters were just keeping these uncomfortable seats for too long, and the theaters were designed a little bit too flat, so if you had somebody sitting in front of you, you couldn't see the theater. And then when home rentals took off and VHS and DVDs and streaming, you started seeing an evolution in the design of movie theaters, and things got a lot better as far as the movie theater experience. And I think that if they competed a little bit more on an even ground, that would accelerate the change.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it kind of ties into some of the ideas that you and I were tossing around last week about this when we were originally talking about it. So, what are your ideas? Let's go. Let's talk about that first. So, if you were, let's say, the CEO of Landmark or Cinemark or any of these, what do you think you would do to kind of help move through this period of time? Like, what are the
Well,
like top three things that you would do?
I mean, if you're talking about coronavirus, I don't think there's anything you can really do. I think you're just going to hunker down and try to get through it to the other side. I think what you do to prepare for what's on the other side, though, is I think there's some experimentation that needs to happen, and there's a little bit more research that needs to happen on their side. There are content experiments that they think that they should make. For one thing, I think they should experiment with some outdoor viewing experiences. And this can be associated. They can do this in their parking lots to start off, and see what it's like to watch something when sitting on the grass or sitting in their cars or whatever it happens to be. But I think that's a viewing experience that hasn't been tapped for very long. But you see that in certain areas. You have the movies in the park experience and things like that. I also think they need to experiment with different kinds of content. I think TV shows, older movies, those kinds of things are something that you can really play around with and have some success. We see re-releases of movies like Avatar doing big business, and more recently, been hearing stories of them showing like the Indiana Jones trilogy, because there were three Indiana Jones movies. To be absolutely clear, there was not a fourth.
I know this argument.
Right. So there are of them showing them in the theaters and drawing people. So I think there's a strategy around it. I mean, we've talked about different kind of release strategies from things that are very regular versus things that are somewhat irregular, and having that unpredictability kind of drawing attention. Right. So if you have, for example, a sudden announcement that, hey, we're gonna guess what, we're gonna show the Mandalorian. We're going to show every episode of last season of Mandalorian for 48 hours only in this theater in a special partnership with Disney. And if you come also, you might be able to hear a little bit of behind the scenes footage from or commentary from Jon Favreau. But you got to come
Yeah,
to the
that would
theater
be
to see
really
it,
cool.
right? Or
Yeah.
some like exclusive elements that are added on. I think that in the theme of concessions, you can open them up. I saw an article recently that talked about what if there was basically a gift shop associated with the movie theater experience, or even if it was just a like an Apple Store style like merchandising opportunity where you see what
Hmm.
T-shirts are available for this movie that you really liked, and you can order them right there from a kiosk, or maybe there's a little bit of inventory that's laying around that you can buy, but just driving sales and then an additional revenue through those different strategies.
Well, I actually saw that for the first time. So, my son and I went to a movie last year, and when we were there, I couldn't believe it. There was like this tiny little kiosk. I mean, it couldn't have been more than, I don't know, like a 5 by 5 or something, and it
Yeah,
was just filled with merch. And I think what it was a probably like a vendor or something like that came in and said, "Hey, can I buy some real estate from you? You know, this little 5 by 5, and drop it in here and put some merch on it." And they were
yeah.
testing it out. Almost everything was gone.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Like people came in, they bought their tickets or had their tickets on their phone already, and then immediately walked up and bought T-shirts and toys like right away.
Yeah.
Almost
There's
like almost like they were at Disneyland, right? You know, where you go in there and the
yeah.
very first thing you do, everyone wants a Mickey hat or something, right? I was like, why haven't they been doing this for like a decade?
Well, this is one of the things I've been wondering about forever. Is they have all these awesome movie posters up, right? They pay so much money for these amazing artists to create these amazing movie posters. But if you want one, you've got to hop online and try to hunt it down, right? And they have even how many times you've been to a movie theater and you've seen like a promotional kind of like cardboard cutout thing, and you're like, oh, I really want that, and they
Oh
will not
yeah.
send it to you, and there's no way for you to get it. I mean, imagine you're in there, you're taking a picture with Luke Skywalker, and then they're like, you know what, you can own this cardboard cutout if you want to throw it in your garage, in your house, if you have like a bar or something you want to throw it in there, you can buy it, and we'll ship it to you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. And actually I have some ideas that I jotted down. They might be a little outside of the box, but kind of some new experiences that thought I'd share with you today, and get your feedback on. So the first one is actually comes from that interesting movie pass experience that happened a couple of years ago. And I know that was a huge, crazy thing, and there's a lot to that story, but one of the things that caught my attention was that when MoviePass started, they were able to basically sign on 3+ million people in like 6 months. It was like a crazy ramp up. And the reason is they gave the user something they've been asking for a long time. If I pay a fixed fee every month, then can I just go to the movies whenever I want? Right. And it's basically like buying an annual pass to a theme park or something like that. So I think it might be time to circle back and figure that out, especially after the coronavirus stuff starts to die down a little bit. I think the idea, and I actually bought one for my mom because she goes to the movies every single week. So that's one of the things that's been hard for her being locked in the house is that every Friday night, my mom and my dad would get together and go see a movie every single Friday night when he got home
Hmm.
from work. And so that was just something that they loved. So when I told her about Movie Pass and AMC's annual passes that they were testing out, she jumped on it and she bought it and she used the whole thing until the company went under. But the thing that she loved the most about it was you simply walk up, you show them your pass, they scan it, they give you a couple tickets, or you can do it online before you get there, and then you just go see as many movies as you want. And the reality is they were seeing 4 a month. And I know there were some people that probably took advantage of it and went and saw a movie every other day, but I think that's a rare thing. I think a lot of the people who used it probably just went about twice as often as they normally would, but they love the idea of just showing a pass and walking in. I think we need to circle back on that. And I also think it helps with projected revenue. So, like, if you have all these passes that were sold in the beginning of the year or during Christmas time, let's say, right, as presents, then you kind of know, like, oh, look at all this revenue that we got from here. And you can kind of make projections about how things are going to look as time passes right throughout the year. The other idea that I had, which kind of goes back to the old days when people used to deliver milk to your doorstep, is I think that the local movie theaters should deliver popcorn and candy to your house. I think you should be able to sign on to your local movie theater website, place an order, and someone will deliver it. Maybe it's through Grubhub or something, and just have hot, fresh popcorn sitting on your front porch that you can use to have a movie experience with your family in the evening. Because it does two things. Number one is their popcorn is absolutely amazing, and I think we would all agree that. And then number two is it keeps the psychological connection. So even if it's not a massive revenue generator, it keeps people psychologically in connection with going to the movies. So once things open up, they're going to want to go back. They're going to miss that popcorn, or maybe they'll continue to order it, and maybe it'll be a great side revenue. But I think it's something to consider.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and one of the aspects of that is keeping people, as you said, psychologically in tune is a great way to keep them coming back to the movie theater because it's reminding them of that experience. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Disneyland experience where if you're walking down Main Street and they're pumping smells into the streets, you can smell the ice cream, you can
Exactly.
smell the popcorn, and it's giving you some element of like keeping it fresh in your mind. So that you're like, oh, that's right, I love popcorn. I'm going to go back and get it. It's like you get the movie theater popcorn, and you're like, oh, that's right, I love going to the movies and seeing certain movies with in that theater experience with like a crowd of people.
Yeah, and actually today's Friday night. We were planning on watching a movie as a family tonight. I would love to be able to push a button and have movie theater popcorn delivered to my house. So I think that maybe other people would as well. And then the last one I'll share with you, and then I wanted to get your feedback on all these, is I was thinking maybe it'd be a good idea to bundle movie tickets with streaming subscriptions. So as someone signs up for Disney Plus, for example, their first year they get 10 tickets. And then the second year, maybe they get like 5 movie tickets. And so what you're doing is you're basically promoting, because people don't like to be wasteful, right? And so you're basically promoting for them to go to the movies, because someone like Disney Plus, for example, is a good example to use, because some of their stuff is going to go directly to streaming, but some of it's also going to show up in the movie theater, right? So you're basically saying, stay home, watch a lot of the stuff that we're putting on our service, but also here's these tickets. Go out with your family, have a good time, go see these movies, right? And so it's just a promotion of kind of getting out of the house and getting back into the routine of going to the movies. So
Uh,
what are your thoughts on these three ideas?
well, I think that the subscription idea is something that obviously showed a lot of promise, and and like you pointed out, when MoviePass and some of these other services came out, and people were able to pay one fee and keep going to the movies, it got a lot of traction. It just the economics didn't work out because they couldn't make it pay off. But there's obviously a great deal of demand there. People want to go to the movie theater. There is that's incontrovertible at this point. We're seeing that in people's behavior. What I think takes that to the next level and could potentially make it viable is if you're bundling it with an Amazon Prime membership, a Netflix membership, especially if now you're provided with the option of like, all right, you really love Stranger Things, you really love Mandalorian, you really love Hannah or any other show that would play well in a movie theater. Along with this, you can also go to this local movie theater and see the content that you could watch at home. But now you
Yep.
can see it in the movie theater. You can watch it with all your friends can meet you there. You can watch it with a new audience. There might be some add-on features there, like new content, some maybe not behind the scenes stuff. Maybe it's some other kind of short featurette. Maybe it's a little bit of director's commentary. Who knows? But there can be some kind of a content add-on that makes it worth it. And I think one of the things that would happen at that point is you'd see a lot more people posting, to their Instagram live or to Twitter or to Snapchat of like, oh, hey, I'm here watching the new episode of The Mandalorian with all my buddies. Like how awesome this is. This is such a great experience. I'm going to buy this Mandalorian hat and this helmet and this baby Yoda plushie because it's just here. And it just promotes the entire experience through the social media channels.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with it. And, one of the things that people always ask us is like, how do you peek around the corner kind of and know when an experience is a good experience or when it's kind of shifting within culture? So that whole movie pass thing was a peek around the corner, right? So like you said, the financials did not work out for them in the moment. But if you think about it, the users told you what they wanted. 3 million people signed up in less than a year, right? It was like 6 months or something like that. So what that tells you is that people want this. They just, weren't able to have it for a long period of time because things didn't work out financially. But maybe someone can make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the history of things that didn't work out the first time, but they worked out the second or third time. Look at Webvan, right?
Yeah.
It was a great concept, didn't work out, and now guess what? You have Instacart and these other services that are really making it work.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that's a wrap for today. I mean, we talked a lot about a lot of great stuff. For those of you who haven't listened to our very first ever podcast, it was on the topic of streaming media, and that one just recently posted last week. So if you have a chance, go ahead and go listen to that. So Dee, what are we going to talk about next week?
Next week, we're going to talk about the long-lasting effects of coronavirus. what new services are going to stick around, what's just a fad that's going to pass, and how is it going to permanently change how we do anything.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.